And we're back in the studio like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Thursday evening here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. So this is like a very difficult day for a cineast, a difficult day for someone who loves certain movies so much, always want to talk about them. So just for reference, on this day, 1993 saw the release of Mike Myers' really hilarious Gen X standard cult classic, So I Married an Axe Murderer. Harriet, sweet Harriet, hard-hearted harbinger of haggis. We had love, not just sex. Is she Mrs. X? I had to run for my life. Well, that was released 32 years ago today. Released 38 years ago today are a pair of brand name movies. My single favorite James Bond film starring my single favorite James Bond, The Living Daylights, Timothy Dalton. Also released on July 31st, 1987 is my favorite vampire film, Joel Schumacher's The Lost Boys. The Michael drinking game. How many different times in that movie does Kiefer Sutherland say the word Michael? It's a lot. And if you do it where each time he says it, you take a shot, you're not going to get very far into the movie before you're being wheeled out of wherever you're watching it, and you'll be on your way to the hospital for your stomach to be pumped. Otherwise, alcohol poisoning will set in. But I'm not going to talk about, sadly, alas, those three movies. I'm going to anniversary today. How about its 44th anniversary? Released on this day, 1981. Is the legendary filmmaker who also did The Maltese Falcon with literally Humphrey Bogart 40 years prior, John Huston's World War II epic Victory. It was released overseas as Escape to Victory, and I guess the studios thought that maybe U.S. audiences were too stupid for a title like Escape to Victory. I mean, it's not really rocket science here. But Victory, released on this day, 1981, a kind of sneaky top 5 favorite films with either Sylvester Stallone or Sir Michael Caine. Now, I have discussed this film in the past, but not for a really long time. And it's one of those movies that wouldn't necessarily seem to have a high rewatchability factor, but it absolutely does. And before I forget, this film is streaming free. It hasn't been free on a service, I don't even know how long, but I just looked it up. It's free on that service called Canopy with a K. That's the one where all you need is a library card. You simply enter a library card that is active anywhere in the continental or otherwise United States. Well, you could be living in Bali, and if you have a library card, you can get into this app. So Victory, or Escape from Victory if you prefer, is streaming free without ads on the Canopy app. And this is not a film that I saw in theaters, but I'm pretty sure it's the first time younger me saw Sylvester Stallone in a movie. So, as many of you know, this film I have over here, Chariots of Fire, is my favorite sports movie. Now, there's different levels of sports movies. There are sports movies where the sport is front and center and left and right and up and down, such as Chariots of Fire, which is about, spoiler alert, track and field. It is about the British track and field team preparing for the 1924 Paris Olympics. It is about sports and how they affect other people and how people use sports for different reasons. One person in that movie runs for God. The other guy doesn't really run for God so much as he runs for his religion, but not in the same way. One is after fortune and glory and to basically give a gigantic double middle-fingered salute to those who would doubt him, and the other guy just wants to bring as many people into the fold as he possibly can. The Natural, Robert Redford, that's a sports movie. It's a baseball movie, but it's also a story. It's a King Arthur story. It's about the Arthurian legend. Well, Victory is a sports movie. It follows the kind of principles, the conceptual aspects of a Rocky film, and not just because it's Stallone. You have an underdog, in this case Stallone himself, but also a ragtag team of POWs who somehow end up playing a soccer match or football against the German national team. It is a stacked deck against our guys, but this is one of those rah-rah movies which does not feel jingoistic. This feels earned because we understand the stakes, and The Great Escape was a little bit less than 20 years before, and spoiler alert, in that movie, they don't all get away. But in this movie, maybe the good guys can actually win. So when I think of my favorite sports movies, I normally don't immediately say, oh yeah, victory, because I think of it more as a World War II story of people trying to overcome impossible, awful circumstances to escape to victory. Now, I didn't know that this movie had more than one title. I thought this movie was just Victory. And then suddenly, the internet era, I keep seeing, what the fuck is this Escape to Victory? Bro, that's the same movie. It was called that in Europe. Oh, well, I didn't know that. Thank goodness for the internet, right? But both Chariots of Fire and Victory were released around the same time, within like a month and a half to U.S. theaters. And Victory was a box office hit. It wasn't like an enormous hit in the manner of Chariots of Fire, which it's one of the most stunning box office hits of all time, because it was this sort of small niche British film that people went crazy over there. And then when it came here, people went crazy over here. And it turned into a massive box office hit and won all the hardware at the Academy Awards, including Best Picture. But I saw Victory right around the same time as when Chariots of Fire made its premiere on HBO and Cinemax. I want to say that both movies were airing in heavy rotation at the exact same time. So I saw Victory as a sports movie because when I was 7 or 8 years old, I didn't understand the mechanics of World War II and why were all of these soccer players, why were they here and what's going on. I just thought the soccer scenes were incredible. And as a kid who grew up playing soccer, soccer was big in Massapequa, the town where I grew up. I knew Pele. I mean, I didn't know him. I knew of him. I knew he had played with the New York Cosmos. And soccer was a bigger deal in the United States back then, seemingly, than it is now. And when I saw that Pele was in the movie, when you're a little kid and you are into soccer, and there is a sportsman who can do all kinds of crazy magic tricks, which aren't magic tricks, they're skill tricks, with a soccer ball, you're interested. And I had seen some stuff with Pele where he did things with a soccer ball, with his knees, with his foot, bicycle kicks, whatever, that I couldn't believe were even real. And when I saw that he was in this movie, oh my God, I have to see it. So I watched it every time it was on HBO or Cinemax. And I watched Chariots of Fire, which I saw in theaters, famously. It felt like I had an out-of-body experience. That's how much that movie got to me. That's why it is still, 44 years later, my single favorite movie of all time, Chariots of Fire. The only film where at a certain point in the cinema, at 7 years of age, it felt like I was no longer in the cinema and I had been transported to the world of the movie. It's the only time that that happened. And I feel like it was because I was only 7. I was so young and I had a very active imagination and flights of fancy and all of that, and that's what it seemed like. But every time Victory was on, I watched it. Even if I didn't get why was Stallone, wait, he escapes, but why would he go back? All of this stuff, it's not difficult to follow, but it didn't quite resonate with me. I didn't understand. But one thing I did understand is there are times where you can win the battle and lose the war, metaphorically. Without spoiling it, Victory is an example of maybe not winning the battle, but still winning the war. Because in the drama of the moment, other things might take place which pave the way for an actual victory. Or maybe they changed the title in the US because they felt it was giving away the ending. I don't know. But Victory is a fascinating film because of the way that John Huston, the filmmaker, decided to cast it. He also did The African Queen. I mean, John Huston is not far below the top tier of greatest filmmakers who ever lived. Like, he's really close. If he's not on the exalted Kubrick, Wells, Scorsese, Spielberg et al. Level, if he's not there, he's a notch below. This guy was an absolute monster filmmaker, and he was a great actor too. I mean, God, in Chinatown, Mr. Gitz. What a scary character he plays there of Noah Cross. But what John Huston decided to do. The film plays as a bit of an homage to The Great Escape. And Bill Conti, who did the musical score for Rocky, the famous main theme of Rocky, Gonna Fly Now, he did the score for this film. And his music is very clearly inspired by the kind of tinkly, upbeat musical score from The Great Escape. So what Huston did with casting was he wanted the soccer sequences in this film to be as realistic as possible. A couple of years after Richard Donner, while making the original Superman, kept using the word verisimilitude. Yes, we have a man on wires flying around, and we want people to think that this is real. But I want everything else to be grounded in as much reality as possible. John Huston wanted the climactic soccer match between the Allied POWs and the German national team. He wanted it to have the feel of an actual soccer match using World Cup rules. So rather than just have actors, because you can make a movie where you don't have any real athletes, where you just have actors pretending to be athletes. I don't know if Clint Eastwood's Invictus, I'm not sure, because most of the major players in the film, like Matt Damon's character, he had some real players out there. But in the world of the film that John Huston creates here, you have a lot of the best soccer players in the world from the 60s and 70s in this cast. In addition to Pele, you had the Argentine legend Osvaldo Ardiles and British legends such as Bobby Moore and Mike Summerby. And Werner Roth plays the German team captain in the world of this film, and he actually had played for the New York Cosmos with Pele. So the number of great soccer players in the cast, it adds to the fun, and it adds to the realism of the story and the kind of excitement as the movie builds to this climax where they're playing in a stadium in Paris. Oddly enough, it's not the same stadium where Chariots of Fire, because the 24 Olympics were held in Paris. They don't use the same stadium, I'm pretty sure, that they use for the track and field events in that film. But to see these real soccer players, the effect is thrilling because we know that it's choreographed. We can see that it's choreographed. And it turns out that Pele drew up all of the diagrams and all of the ways of potentially shooting the soccer sequence. John Huston was not a guy who necessarily loved collaborators telling him what to do, but he figured he had someone like Pele Pele lived and breathed soccer for his whole life, and that's not an exaggeration. So he gave him carte blanche. You tell me what you would like to do, and I, as filmmaker, will see, is this achievable? Do I think this works narratively? Do I think this works dramatically? And then you just kind of go from there. But because the main stars, from the Hollywood perspective, of Sylvester Stallone and Michael Caine. Now, Michael Caine is an okay athlete, and Sylvester Stallone, as a young man, was a really good athlete. But there's still a gap in terms of what can we shoot with Michael Caine, because Caine's character of John Colby is supposed to have been one of the best soccer players in Europe before the war. Okay. Stallone, they stick him in goal. We see a little bit of him interacting, trying to play like a striker position, but he sucks. And that's kind of the point. He's not a soccer player. And he's in this prison camp with all of these soccer players who ended up, they all were rounded up during the war. This wasn't that crazy. Now, luckily, when we had American baseball players, for example, in World War II, none of them that I know of were taken hostage. Ted Williams flew 6 successful bombing runs. Ted Williams, they say, maybe was the greatest fighter pilot who ever lived, because you take someone with the coordination to hit a circular object traveling at you at 100 miles an hour from 60 feet away. You take somebody who did that better than anyone else ever did it, you're going to have yourself a heck of a fighter pilot. But in the world of this film, you have all of these famous soccer players in the same prison camp, and here comes Sylvester Stallone's Robert Hatch, another great name. I don't know if Sly came up with that name. He didn't write this script. But Robert Hatch is in this prison camp, and he has contacts with the French underground. This is where you get into the Great Escape angle. But he has contacts with the French underground, and he starts to plan his own escape, nothing to do with the team. Nothing to do with the team. one member of the German high command, and I also understand that this movie, it's not so much making light of the horrors of World War II, it's telling a particular fictional story very loosely based on something that we think may have happened. Very loosely based. But the character played by Max von Sydow, it's a big international cast. Daniel Massey, another kind of big name from the era that's in this film. But Max von Sydow, as a member of the high command, and I'm not going to use the word, he does not like the war. He does not like the fighting. He is not on board with the killing. And it doesn't seem as if he's even on board with this prisoner camp, but it's not like he can complain to anybody because he'll end up with probably 10 bullets in his head and they're going to kill his family too, like that kind of thing. So he's not going to say anything. But he wants and wishes for a world where countries can settle their differences on the pitch. Meaning, I would rather play a soccer match and we'll just call that World War II and everybody abides by it. I'd rather do that than what we're doing. He doesn't spell it out that way, but this is what we very clearly get from him. So he recognizes Michael Caine's John Colby. I saw you play before the war. You're Colby. Yes, that's me. And the two guys don't exactly start a friendship, but von Steiner, that's the Max von Sydow character, he's really interested, and he comes up with this cockamamie, there's a word that isn't in common usage, he comes up with this cockamamie idea, this absurd idea. How about you guys, because you're some of the best soccer players in the world, you guys start to train, and we will set up, on a neutral site, we will set up a soccer match between your guys and the German national team. What do you say? And Michael Caine thinks it's absurd, but then when he runs it through the mental meat grinder, he realized, no, wait a minute, we're going to have better food, we're going to have better living conditions, we are going to be treated better. Yeah, let's do it. So he's just looking at it as, hopefully we're not going to be here that much longer. Hopefully the other allies will win this war. So why should we not take advantage of this guy's kindness, which isn't really kindness? He doesn't want the Germans to lose. He sees it as an opportunity for propaganda purposes. We can beat these allies. Look at the way we handled them on the pitch. So you have this ridiculous game that is in process, and you're getting ready to play this game. And Stallone's Robert Hatch makes his escape. He makes his escape. And while he's living in France, he is contacted again by the resistance that tells him, you have to go back.
You mean I gotta get captured? It took me a year to get out of there.
Actual dialogue. Robert Hatch doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would just go back, but he goes back. And the reason why they want him to go back is because now the French resistance sees an enormous opportunity. We can break all of these Allied POWs, these famous soccer players, we can break them all out. And this will be a great victory for us. Fuck them, meaning the Germans. So Robert Hatch goes back, and the plan is they're going to go through the motions of playing the soccer match. But at halftime, the entire team is going to escape through the tunnels underneath the stadium where they're playing the game. It's all set up. They're all ready to go. And then when you get to the game, spoiler alert, they're not going to go anywhere because they see the opportunity. We can win this game. We can stick it in their ear. Fuck them. Let's stay and let's play. So I mentioned how you have all real soccer players and then Sylvester Stallone and Michael Caine. They put Stallone in goal. And the mechanics of how Stallone even ends up being a goalkeeper, it's a little bit weak. It deals with really the one moment in the film with the most brutal realism. They have a fantastic goalkeeper who I think is supposed to be, I think he's Scottish in real life. He was a successful goalkeeper. I don't remember his name. And he's the goalie. And Michael Caine, he wants to bring Stallone's Robert Hatch to the game as a backup. And von Steiner doesn't want him. He says, no, the American, you can't bring him. This guy already tried to escape. You're not taking him. You come up with someone else to be your backup goalie. And then Michael Caine, as Colby, says, well, my goalie is injured. My goalie is injured, and Hatch is my backup. You got to let me have a goalie. Yeah, okay. All right. if you can prove to us, we're going to send a doctor over later today. If you can prove to us that your number one goalie is injured, of course you can take him. Now, he doesn't say it like that, but that's the gist of it. So then Michael Caine's Colby has to go to the goalie, this kid, this 20-something-year-old kid who apparently was a star before the war, and he tells him, I have to break your arm. I'm sorry, I have to break your arm. And you're not even going to be able to see the game. You're going to be stuck here and probably in the infirmary. It is horrible. And this movie kind of dances around the true terrors of World War II in Europe and all that I mean by World War II in Europe. It dances around the horrors, but this one scene is so brutal and so gutting. It's not that it makes up for it, but it reminds us of the stakes, of how awful all of this is. So Stallone was a good enough athlete, and the character played by Pele, Luis Fernandez, he kind of is almost talking to the audience where he says, Hatch, you can be a good goalkeeper. He's saying, you have the talent. You can't play any other position, but you're fast, you're very athletic, you're a good competitor, you can make a good goalkeeper. But when you think about it, he doesn't have any goalie experience. They're about to play a soccer match under World Cup rules against the German national team, and he's just stuck in goal. So there's a running gag. There's a couple of great moments in this film which have nothing to really do with the story proper. But there's one that does, where Stallone, when he's planning his escape, they're kind of trying to dissuade him from doing it. And they say, well, you don't want to get shot as a spy, do you? And Sly goes,
I don't want to get shot as anything.
yeah, I don't want to get shot as anything. What the hell's the difference if I get shot as a spy or as an American or as a guy who didn't like the movie Rocky, right? Who gives a shit? Maybe they thought that we blew the ending of FIST. Stallone's still mad about that 47 years later. And then there's another thing. There are moments between Colby and Hatch, Michael Caine and Sylvester Stallone, where Sylvester Stallone, he's such a novice in goal.
Hey, yo, Colby.
Yeah, Hatch, what is it?
Hey, yo, where do I stand for a corner kick?
Where do I stand for a corner kick? And each time Stallone asks Caine, where do I stand for a corner kick? Michael Caine just laughs. Relax, Hatch, you'll be fine. Relax, Hatch, you'll be fine. Just before they get to the site to play the game.
Hey, yo, Colby, where do I stand for a corner kick?
Far post, Hatch. Far post. So we get to the game, they play the game. The Germans are kicking the crap out of the Americans, the Allies. They're not Americans. They're people who fought under the Allied banner. U.S. team, the Allies are getting beat up. It's like 3-0. And because he's not a goalie, he doesn't understand that you don't wander out of the net because you can't see where the ball is. You stay in fucking goal. You stay there. And there's a moment in the film where he almost lets another goal in because he's too busy trying to watch the action in front of him. And Michael Caine just screams, stay on the bloody line! Just stay on the bloody line! That's a nice way of saying, stay on the fucking line! Stop wandering out of the net during play! What the hell are you doing over there? So, the fact that all of these disparate plot threads coalesce, come together in this genuinely gripping, exciting last half hour of the film. And they hired a real-life radio broadcaster, I don't remember his name, to do the game as if he's broadcasting it to an actual real worldwide audience. Again, this movie is not based on, like, this game didn't happen like this. But it adds to the excitement, and it adds to the sense of realism that we're watching an actual soccer match take place. So Pele's Luis Fernandez gets injured early in the film. I think that he has a couple of broken ribs because he has his arm kind of like this to protect one side. I think he got hit in the ribs and he's out of the game. So we're also led to believe that the Germans are not going to play fair. On top of the advantages they have of elite training and food and all of the preparation, and these guys are in a fucking prison camp. They're living better than they were, but they're still in a prison camp. The referees are not playing entirely fair. And there is a moment where the Allies tie the score and a goal is disallowed because reasons. And it's an interesting moment in the film because as much as the German high command is cheering the referee disallowing a goal, You look over at Max von Sydow's Major von Steiner, and he is not happy. Yes, he wanted his guys to win. He wants his country to win. He doesn't want the German national team to get embarrassed by the Allies, but he wanted them to win fair and square. He didn't want there to be any fixed bullshit or cheating. Let's just play the damn match. So when he realizes what's gone on, he is very unhappy. But again, it's not like he can take it up with the high command or anybody higher than him. He's going to have to keep his mouth shut. So you get a little bit further in, and Pele, who is not really looking that great on the bench, puts his hand up, and Michael Caine as Colby trots over, and Pele's Luis Fernandez says, "Let me play. I must play." "You can't play." So no. I must play. So Pele goes out there, and Michael Caine has an incredible moment where he's jostling for the ball with one of his teammates. I think it's with Mike Summerby's character. So Michael Caine and an actual soccer player are going for the ball. They're on the same side. And Michael Caine actually says, "Leave it, it's mine." The more you think about that, the funnier it gets. Leave it, it's mine. So Pele is limited. Again, in the world of this film, he's so much better than all the other players, they almost had to sideline him. Otherwise, he would have just kept scoring all the goals. Like, the guy was unstoppable. And the character Luis Fernandez is presented as he's probably the best soccer player in the entire world. So he maybe can't move the way that he should or can't score in a conventional manner. But it doesn't mean that he can't score, period. And there's probably less than 30 seconds left in the game. And the Allies get the ball and they move it around, and Pele positions himself in front of the goal. But he's facing his own goal. He's facing Stallone's Robert Hatch all the way on the other end of the field. So he's probably about 15 to 20 feet, but the goal is behind him. Goal is behind him. And I think it's the Mike Summerby character who puts the ball way up in the air. There's less than 30 seconds left, as I said. They're down a goal. And the ball goes up, 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 up. And the cinematography is breathtaking as we see the ball arcing up and coming down. And you see all of the players, it's mostly German players. I don't think there are any other allies in the shot. They are all trying to get to the ball. Can they use their head? Can they do anything? And Pele is just standing there, and he's tracking the flight of the ball. And you can see him almost bouncing up and down, timing something. I mean, what could he do? He's facing the wrong way. As the ball comes down, Pele goes into a leap backwards. And as the ball comes across, he hits it with his foot that way, puts it in goal, tie game. And the movie might be corny. It might be absurd beyond belief. But Pele hitting that goal, doing that bicycle kick, getting to kind of show his stuff even at a later age. I mean, he wasn't quite retired, but he certainly wasn't the dynamo player that he had been throughout the 70s and especially in the 60s when he led Brazil to all those World Cups. To see the great Pele, many still consider to be the greatest soccer player who ever lived, to see him pull off a signature move at a pivotal moment in this movie, it's about as good as it gets. And it is, to this day, one of my top 10 favorite moments of any movie. It might even be in the top 5. Even if the rest of the film doesn't work for you, I don't know anybody that doesn't get the chills when they see what I just said. So that's not even the ending. I won't spoil the ending. This is a movie that I don't know anyone who has seen who does not like it. And it's the sort of film where, and I mentioned this concept before, if you are just looking or if you're just curious, if you're a young person, let's say under 35, and you ask an older relative or somebody you work with, if they've seen this movie, their eyes will light up and they will say something like, "That is a great movie and you have to see it." Some variation on that. They'll say, "You have to see it." This is a fantastic film. There are some that would just say it's a guilty pleasure movie. But if I'm ranking what are the best movies that Sylvester Stallone was ever in, I mean, I have to put the original Rocky first. And I love Rocky IV. Rocky III is okay. But Rocky I and Rocky IV, either version of Rocky IV, would definitely be in my Stallone top 5. I think Victory Victory is either second or third. That's how much I love this. I mean, it's better than Tango and Cash. It's better than Cliffhanger. I prefer it to Demolition Man as much as I like that movie. This is one of the best films that Sly was ever in. And the Rotten Tomatoes score does reflect it. It's well into the 70s. Like, this is not a movie that, like Stallone with the 12% Get Carter, 13% The Specialist, and some of the other movies which are guilty pleasure movies. Well, like I just said with Arnold, End of Days, 11%. This is a terrific film, and the fact that it's free on streaming, I encourage all of you, if you're a fan of Stallone, this is the lightest that he ever was for a movie, by the way. He filmed it in between Rocky II and Rocky III. This film came out in 1981. He shot it right after Nighthawks. Right after Nighthawks, where he had the beard and the hair. But Victory, or if you're across the pond, Escape to Victory. 44 years old. 1981. In my probably top 3 favorite Sylvester Stallone films. And if I'm naming favorite Michael Caine films, yeah, this is in the top 5. You got to put The Sixth Sense in there. Not The Sixth Sense. What the fuck am I talking about? Cider House Rules. I said The Sixth Sense because Michael Caine still seems upset about the fact that he beat Haley Joel Osment for Best Supporting Actor for Cider House Rules when Haley was in The Sixth Sense. But Michael Caine, The Prestige, Batman Begins, Cider House Rules, Victory, and Dress to Kill. Dress to Kill as Dr. Elliot. Victory. Released on this day, 1981, directed by John Huston and starring Sylvester Stallone, Michael Caine, Pele, Osvaldo Ardiles, Werner Roth, Bobby Moore, and a whole host of other fantastic soccer players. This has been episode 583 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all so much for spending some of your Thursday evening here with me in New York. If you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then,